You're joining the Loudr Lawyer Network, the podcast where we sit down with the law firm owners, attorneys, and visionaries that are making the most noise in the legal landscape nationwide to find out the secrets to their success. Other podcasts think they're getting loud, but we're getting louder. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Loudr Lawyer Network, where we help attorneys scale to million-dollar months through powerful strategies and connection. This morning, I'm pleased and honored to welcome Brandon Dawson. Brandon, welcome to the Loudr Lawyer Network.
Man, glad to be here. Thanks so much, and look forward to sharing my story and learning more about you today.
Oh, no, absolutely. I don't know how much you'll learn about me other than I just like good human beings. I like connecting. I like seeing the human heart in everything we do because we're all called to be of service. And I've seen with your background, and we'll get more into that later, what you do in the community is all service, and that's what God calls us to do. And I so much appreciate who you are as a human being, Brandon. So take me back. I had a question. Brandon, you've built a brand that gives people thumbs up during the lowest moments in their lives. Who gave you the thumbs up and the belief and the reassurance in your life?
Man, I got to go back to my parents, to my grandparents, really just surrounding yourself with people like that truly believe in you. I think I've always had, for no real apparent reason, a bunch of overconfidence and just belief in myself. And I would say, I think, some of that you're born with, some of it's the adversity that you have throughout your life and how you either overcome or succumb to that adversity. And, we were talking beforehand and a little bit about, some of the adversity faced, and I won't go into all the details, but, lost my dad when I was 9, very unexpectedly. A couple of years later, my granddad, who was like a second father to me, kind of somewhat suddenly had a significant injury and passed away shortly after that. And, it was a lot of hardship. And, my mom was, an absolute rock and helping us, pull through that. Had some amazing friends and family, cousins, things of that nature. But, it really was. It was like, man, I learned early on that, you can get knocked down a lot. But as long as you get back up, you're still in the fight. And I think that's kind of how I've always, lived my life is like, there's going to be a lot of, and I hope I can cut a lot of shit that happens to you.
Be yourself.
and it's just how you deal with it. Life is not all rainbows and butterflies. And so the people that gave me the thumbs up, were, again, early on family, friends. And again, I was just lucky to be surrounded by some amazing people. And, there's the old saying that you are who, the sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself with for the most part. And I was very blessed. And, I think being a parent now, I think, my mom was very, intentional about curating, those friendships and maybe ending some of the ones that weren't as great of friendships. And, I sort of gravitated, I think, towards the right crowd, fortunately, and just always was trying to be better and, the best version of myself. So really long answer to that, but I think I got to give a shout out to kind of the whole crew growing up and again, realizing that adversity, in the moment, can seem, I remember, asking God, why? And it's hard to see the forest through the trees. And here we are, 32 years later for my dad and whatnot. And you start to see the why. And so, it was just, every day, one foot in front of the other. And here we are, man. And I'm, blessed to be in the position I'm in.
Hey, man, you said something. You said a few things in that. No, that's a very, very beautiful opening from you. You mentioned curating, what your mother did, and you kind of done the same thing in terms of your life. Tell me about, you lost your dad at 9, as you were saying. What vision led you to want to become an attorney, and specifically in the PI world?
I never intended to be an attorney. That wasn't, I had some friends in law school and they always knew they were going to be an attorney. I always enjoyed helping people. Actually, I went to school for finance. I thought I would help in that side of things. I was always good on, in the math field. English was not necessarily my favorite subject growing up, and in college I actually started to enjoy it more and more. And I ended up pivoting, and it was the end of 07, 08. The market was crashing. Finance, I'd just gotten out of school. Finance, jobs were hard to come by. I had one, but I didn't love it. And I didn't really feel like I was helping the people that I was working with as much as I wanted to. And so went back to law school and said, let me rack up some student debt here. And said, well, I got to figure out what I'm going to do. And fortunately, throughout law school, I was lucky enough to have some great clerkships at some firms that were on the plaintiff side. And I still remember, a really good friend and mentor to me, Tom Gressett. He took me to a bellwether client interview of this Chantix litigation. That's the anti-cessation, smoking cessation drug. And this drug had really made this widow's husband just out of the blue. He started taking the drug. He started having all these crazy suicidal ideations, and ultimately took his own life after being a totally normal guy. And I felt like that was the right side to be on, to help her get some justification, some retribution, and some what's the word I'm looking for? Basically just some peace, for what she had to go through, and know that her husband, wasn't crazy, and that it was this drug that he was taking. And obviously, monetarily it's great, but I really felt like, just mentally helping her get through that. So I gravitated towards helping people. And so then when I got out of law school, I had a couple opportunities to do billable hours and do a bunch of research and writing, things I didn't like. And I knew that at the end of the day, money would find me if I really followed what I truly loved and enjoyed doing. And so I said, all right, well, I got out of my old job that I didn't like doing, so I'm certainly not going to go back to law school to find another job I don't like doing. And I knew I didn't like working billable hours and working for insurance companies. So I said, I'm going to give it a shot over here on the plaintiff side, doing what I enjoy doing. And, it's kind of worked out well since then.
Yeah, no doubt it has. We have, when I saw that, I saw you mentioned the smoking cessation, Chantix. Well, my uncle happened to, Lou Ryan, Brandon's father, had a company called Self-Help Works, and he had won the #1 smoking cessations in the country. And we had a program called Operation Smoke Free, so where we're getting people to quit smoking. So when I saw that there, I was like, the connections, the state of mind that you came from in wanting to, where you felt pulled to help someone, that spoke volumes to me. So you're working in the law and stuff. Tell me about, I know about your partners. There's 4 of you guys, are founding partners.
Yeah.
What you took the leadership in putting it together. What made you want to go out and build your own firm? You were with the firm before where you built it up to like 50 individuals, 50 employees strong.
Yeah, I was the first employee over there. It was me and the founding partner of that firm, the sole member over there. And I remember I got hired, and I thought there was another attorney there, and I got in the first day, and I thought, I'll be able to learn from, George, this other attorney there. And I kind of start looking around, and again, there were only like 3 offices. And then I go, man, I don't see George. And I realized, I am George. Yeah. And so just kind of, got thrown in the deep end, and, I enjoy problem solving. And so I just started kind of figuring stuff out, and realizing that the business of law versus the practice of law. And so, helped grow that firm. And, the lawyer there, she was a tremendous marketer, and, kudos to her. She kind of put all her chips on the table, and marketing went really well. I enjoyed doing basically all the other stuff, all the legal work, a lot of hiring, firing, just growing the team, going to conferences, learning from the Chad Dudleys and Mickey Loves and Ken Hardisons of the world, and just pouring into it. How do you grow a great business? And, we started to have some divergences on how we viewed people, and paying people, and, what was the right thing to do for clients. And, at that point in time, I had recruited, one of my wife's law school classmates, Ryan Siegel, over to that firm. He, really good lawyer. And I said, look, early on, I said, this thing's growing, jump on board, and he, took the leap as well. And so, we always were super close, and, we kept recruiting, kept growing. And Ryan Miller came over. He also went to law school with Jess, my wife, and my now partner, Ryan Siegel. And then we also ultimately recruited Jeff Ward through some other means. And I think all of us are just very like-minded, and also got just a little fed up with the really toxic culture that was over there.
Right.
And just said, man, we can do this better. And there, as I guess politely PC way of putting it, there are a lot of promises made, not kept. And, I thank God for it. It's worked out really well. But, I think the way it all transpired, it was certainly not me saying, hey, we're doing this. It was a lot of things that pushed and pulled. And, I was actually probably the last one that got on board with them kind of going, hey, I think we can peel off. But I was ready. It was certainly something I basically had already done. But don't get me wrong, it was a scary venture. But going back to what I said earlier with being happy, I was not happy at that point in time. And so it made it pretty easy that I was ready to take the leap. I think they were, still tiptoeing a little bit. And I was like, I'm ready. Like, let's roll. I'm done with this. I get one life to live, and I'm not going to be miserable at it. And so, I got to kind of leap out a little early to help, kickstart everything. But man, it's been a group effort from day one, and just super blessed to have really like-minded guys that, really, they're like brothers. We fight like brothers, and we love each other like brothers. And I think that's what makes this work is, we're closer than just a job, work buddies. It really is something like we care about each other. We care about the vision. We want to grow. And I'd love to tell you it's all been perfect and rainbow and butterflies, like I said earlier. But just like marriage, man, it's got its bumps in the road, and you got to work through them. And again, fortunately, we've all been willing to work through the tough times to get to the good times.
And I saw you saying something about that. Like, here you are, your leadership shows throughout your career. From an early age, stepping out, doing the things you're doing, going to Clemson, going to school, jumping into finance and accounting, as you stated earlier, and just the whole road has always been you're out in front, you're leading, you're following the path that the Holy Spirit is putting in you, just trusting. You seem to be a man that walks in faith, and so as I looked at your four partners, you got four different personalities, right?
Oh, yeah.
But you seem to have everybody on board with your vision and things of that nature. Tell me about how that leap in starting the firm, because it was Miller, Ward, Siegel, and Dawson.
Yeah.
Those were the four names.
Got it.
What presented you to go with the thumbs up guys like that?
Well, I'm impressed that you remembered all the names, because most of the time people couldn't remember. They'd be like Miller's, they couldn't remember,
man.
even one or two of them.
Come on.
And so we knew we had a name problem. Pretty much every lawyer out there has got, Smith and Smith, Johnson and, Frank. It's like all these just last names that don't really mean anything. They don't really stick. And so we realized early on that, we needed to somehow stand out. And especially if we wanted to do advertising, we needed something memorable. And early on, we hired a firm, and we tried to just shorten it to MDSW, and thought maybe that would work. And we were a little skeptical about that. And that ended up not really working. And it's probably partly the spin that we had wasn't enough, but the messaging wasn't right either. And so then we said, all right, we got one more shot of this before we kind of go broke. And so, all right, we're going to push all the chips in here, and, we're going to spend way more than, what you would typically look at and say, when you're looking at percentages, typically people will say, 25 to 30% of your budget on marketing is really heavy growth. And I think we were like 65 to 85% of our budget was on marketing. We were lean and mean and just putting everything into marketing at that point. We interviewed several different marketing agencies, and one of them, said, well, yeah, you got a name problem. And they pitched us a couple different things. And one of them was the Thumbs Up guys. And, I'd love to tell you, Raj, that we were like, oh yeah, that was absolutely right away. We knew it. We were like, okay, maybe. And it really is one of those things that's grown on me over time. And you probably heard me say this, but there were two times I feel like I kind of knew that it was going to work. It was, one, when the first time we went up there and filmed, I came back and I told my wife, I said, man, I feel like we got something here. Like, it just felt right. The messaging felt right. Everything about it felt right. And, like I said, I'm somewhat of an eternal optimist and overconfident at times, but I just believed. And I think that really is kind of step one, is you have to believe, and you have to put it out to the universe, or else it's never going to be true. And then the other one was, I remember my grandma at the time, she was probably in her late 90s. And I would talk to her probably once every other week or so, my ride home from work, and just catch up with her. And man, I love just hearing stories from her. She grew up in the 20s, went through the Depression, and she was with it, man, all the way up till she passed away at 102. But up to 100, she was sharp as a tack. And she said, Brandon, what I love about the Thumbs Up guys is I get it. I know that it means something good. And she's like, and my great grandbabies, they know Thumbs Up means something good. And she's like, it just transcends every generation. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, it really does. It just, all you need is just that to hear it, to see it, to, even think about it. It just connotes that good vibes. And so I felt like at that time, I was like, you're right. Like, this is the direction. And fortunately, the marketing wise, it worked. And I think it also melded well with all of our personalities. You can't fake a good time, right? If you're not a Thumbs Up, guy or gal, then it doesn't really work if we were all downtrodden. But I think it really did. It fit perfectly.
No doubt, man. That's a beautiful. Grandma gave the seal of approval, and you're like, that's it. Thumbs up.
That's right. She's looking down right now, giving the thumbs up. So
it's amazing that you go back to what your family and your grandmother and your father, all of these individuals in the village to raise a star, and you stood out from that because people have followed your leadership. They followed your decisions and things. It's not like you lead by example. You know what I mean? And I admire that. Tell me about, you said you had the lean years happening. Do you remember your first big case with Thumbs Up? Like, how did that play out?
yeah, I would say the first real big case. Real big case is a relative term. And what I guess I'll answer your question, but let me tell you before I answer it in full. When we first we had this little crappy office. It was like an old dental office and parquet floors. I had no windows. I think Jeff had like a porthole size window in his office. Miller was basically acting as a receptionist. Jeff, handmade the desk we had in the conference room from some, $30 of lumber at Lowe's. So some hand-me-down. We had hand-me-down monitors. Refurbished laptops. I'm telling you, it was a shoestring budget. And so when we got in there, we didn't have money for a whiteboard, but they've got like sticky stuff you can put up on the wall that acts like a whiteboard. And I wrote down, all right, this is the cases we signed this week and this month. I wanted to kind of keep, it was like my old school dashboard. It was on a whiteboard, but I also wrote down, as John Morgan calls them, BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. And I said, all right, we're going to have these BHAGs. And one of them was, we wanted to have 30 team members. And I thought, man, having 30 people working for us, that's crazy, and I wanted to sign 50 cases a month. And I said, man, if we could do in revenue $500,000 a month, like that would just be insane. And so, back then a big case relatively would have been a, $50,000 settlement would have been a big case.
Right.
But, and so, it was kind of step by step. And I remember Siegel had one that was, about $100 and something thousand case. And early on, there's a lot of fee splits. We were taking work from anybody that would give us work. And so, some of the better ones, there were some fee splits on them, but man, tell you, the one that I really remember is our first 7-figure case at the firm. And it was a former client of mine and Ryan Miller's at our old firm. And, he liked us and found us, thankfully, and, ended up calling us, and we ended up settling that for $1 million. And I remember, that was probably year 3 or 4. And that was a huge deal. That was, something that made the quarter. You're like, holy moly, we just, made $400,000 or so on this case, and got to help this guy that we really love and care about. And so, that was probably the first real big one. So, Mr. Williams was his name. Great guy. Still talk to him. But yeah, that was probably the first real big case that I remember.
Man, I love the humble beginnings with you guys stepping out. So you guys left a firm that you helped build that was 50 members strong.
Yeah.
And then you 4 of you guys ventured out. I have this, it reads like a movie. You guys go out, leave all that behind. Did any of your clients come with you?
Yeah, we had some clients that wanted to come with us, and that was certainly part of the strategy, for lack of a better term, of all right, we got to make sure that we're doing this ethically as well, and clients get the option of where they want to go. At that point in time, I was doing a lot more management, so I only had a few clients. I had maybe 10 or 12, and most of them came with me. Some of them, I said, I think you're better off staying here. It's kind of near the end of a case or something like that. But I think we had roughly 100 or 115 or so clients came over, and that got tied up in litigation for, I don't know, 18 months or so with that prior firm. And then, that all worked out. And that's kind of, like I said, we were able to have some extra money to kind of go all in there. And that's when we said, all right, we're just putting everything we got towards marketing, and let's just pray it works here. And so, that certainly helped out. But yeah, we were bootstrapping, man. I mean, that was the money that was like all marketing. It just like, it wasn't like, oh, we're going to pay ourselves one dime of this. We had taken a probably 85 to 95% pay cut, and leaving, and didn't pay ourselves for 6 months, between, and really longer for me. So, it would have been easy, I think, to take that money and say, oh, okay, yes, we got some money, and now we can, take that home and pay some bills. But we said, no, this is staying in the firm, and we're putting it all towards, growing. And that was, like I said, it was just the 4 of us for, a little over 2 years. And honestly, probably waited a little too long to hire. But I'm proud to say our first 2 hires that we made are still with us today, and have continued to absolutely crush it over here and lead. One is our intake manager, and she's an absolute rock star, manages 10 plus people. She's has done every job in the firm. That's Haley. And Kyle has grown from a case manager, not knowing anything about law, and now working as our HR director. He has really grown, and we poured into him. And so just, man, I tell you, that just gives me so much joy in seeing how much they've grown, and we've grown with them. And right. I just, they're great humans, and we're just lucky to have them. And so I sidebar, but just shout out to them. And we're
shout them all out, because correct me if I'm wrong, but you now went from 4 to 24 attorneys.
I think I was looking yesterday. I think it's 27 or 28.
Oh, 27? Oh, okay. So yeah, man. Kudos to you, man. Your team. And when you guys brought the cases, it wasn't every man for himself. You guys put it together as like a family. That I see the family aspect of it. The other thing that I noticed with you guys, man, you guys are fashionable. I love fashion, and just the way in which you just carry yourselves, man. There's no ego. You see the humbleness. I look at a person's eyes, right, and I listen to what they are, and the little things, like looking at you right now, and you got your 2 kids on the back of the wall and stuff. That balance is around you. all the time. Tell me, how does you have the success happening? How did that intertwine with you guys as a whole? How were you able to stay humble with all the success that you guys have had?
Oh man, I think there's certain people, and I've heard, this, Michael Mogul's talked about this, but there's a certain gene kind of in you, like you set these goals, like I said earlier, these BHAGs, and we have, obviously blown those out of the water. And I never remember, we never stopped and celebrated those because we always stay hungry. And I just think that there's certain people, and it's not always a blessing, it can be a curse as well, that really just are never happy. Even when you meet your goal, you exceed your goal, it's just like, all right, well, what's next? What's next? And so, I appreciate the kind words, and, obviously we've been very successful. We're very happy with that, but man, I feel like we're just scratching the surface and just getting started. And so I think for me, I look at this every day. There's always somebody bigger and better, right? I mean, John Morgan, compared to the thumbs up guys, I mean, that's David versus Goliath. So, right. I'm.
Well, you know how that story turned out.
Yeah, that's right. John's got a 30-year head start on us, and John shares so much, and I've learned so much from reading his books, listening to his podcast, and there's so many other out there that continue to share and uplift the entire plaintiff community. Like many of the guests you had on, from Jen Gore to Angel Reyes, and so many others.
Jen Gore is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, they just love to share and grow, and just, again, see everybody, succeed. And so, yeah, I think that I think most of us here on the plaintiff side, we care about people, and hopefully most of us aren't. It's not about ego. It's just about how can we help others.
Right. What's interesting, man, is that seeing what I've learned about your firm. There was something that really got me. You never see this, but being attorneys in the PI world, where most of them happen through MVA, motor vehicle accidents, you guys were telling people, take an Uber, just going out. That comes from a different perspective. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, don't go out there and drive. Don't do these things. It's about the human life. Those things happen anyway, but to see you stand up every holiday and talk about that's the first thing. That's the first thing in mind. 4th of July.
Yeah, not only talk about it. I mean, we have Uber vouchers, at pretty much every major holiday you can think. 4th of July, New Year's Eve, St. Patrick's Day. We do it out at the fair when there's, a lot of, drinking going on. So anytime that we can kind of partner up, with events and get people home safer, it's not just talked about. And again, that's something that, I see other firms doing as well. And so I think it is there's a lot of us in this community that truly do care about what we're doing, and we don't want people to get hurt, right? And we put our money where our mouth is there. So
no, absolutely. That stood out to me. I hadn't seen you're the first firm that I've seen that I've talked about that I see doing that, and I just I salute you on that. You have a quote that you have. Time is precious, make the most of it. And I've seen how you balance family, because your wife, she's an attorney too, right? Real estate.
Correct. Yep.
And you got 2 beautiful kids. How was it going through those lean years and those lean months, holding everything together? and how did take me what those moments were like?
Man, one day at a time, right? That was, the babies were young. And that's when the old saying that the days are long, but the years are short, and just reminding myself of that. And really, I mean, Jess was an absolute trooper through, us, branching off and starting the firm and going from, making a solid 6-figure income to making no money, and going, all right, well, she was buttoned down and worked her butt off, and helped pull us through, those lean years. And again, you figure out a way to make it work. And so it really does. It takes a team. And again, like I said earlier, just like a partnership, marriage has its peaks and valleys, man. But when I said I do till death do us part, I mean, that's what it means. And so we work through any of the times it was down, but man, it's all, been very blessed. It is pretty much always a high, in married life with us. Jess keeps me on my toes, and having two lawyers in the house can sometimes seem like we're always kind of at it. But again, we both have an opinion. We're both arguing for an angle. And sometimes I have to kind of step back and go, do I even care about this position, or am I just arguing to argue? Right. And half the time it's the latter. And I'm like, I just need to shut up and I don't need to win this argument. I need
right.
It's what is it? You don't want to win the battle, but lose the war.
Exactly. Well said. With the success and everything that your firm has had, what struck me was what you do from the charitable aspect. You work with the charity, every one voice. And
every one voice matters. Yes, we were with Sharika yesterday.
Yeah, you have backpacks, bicycles, coats, meals, scholarships. Being involved, taking an active, walking the walk, not just writing a check, but being out there engaging and stuff. And I found that to be very good. Tell me how that came about.
Well, I'll tell you, part of that's selfish because I get a ton of joy from helping others. And so being there and actually, giving out the backpacks or putting together the bicycles and getting to see these kids' smiles on their faces, I mean, it brings me a ton of joy. And so, it really did. It just kind of came naturally there. And it was like, all right, how can we help? As you kind of mentioned earlier, I think that when you have success, you owe an obligation to your community that has brought you that success to pour back into them. And so I certainly felt that obligation, that calling. That's always been something that's kind of been ingrained in me, from an early age of giving back. And so, we just said, all right, how can we make this work? And ended up talking to Mayor Burgess down here in North Charleston. And he said, you got to meet Sharika. She's doing some great things for the community. And so, we met with her, and it really the vision aligned. Between the four of us, we've got 10 kids that are 10 and under. And so she was doing a lot in the community with the youth. And, we just know how important it is to make sure that kids aren't starting behind the 8 ball, right? That they have the supplies that they need to go to school, that they can get to school safely, that, they have the literacy courses that they need to not get, behind. Literacy is probably one of the biggest things that is an indicator of future success. And, we want to say, hey, if we can get an extra 5, 10, 15% of kids to be more literate, and that will increase their chances of being successful later, well, then that's it's a huge number. So that really is kind of what drew us to that. And there's so many other things, but really with Sharika, that's, the main focus is helping the local community, especially the youth, and making right decisions early on, and then having some guidance and leadership to them when maybe that isn't necessarily there. And so again, we're just blessed to be associated with Sharika. She's an amazing individual. That she goes a mile a minute. I don't know how her gas tank is not always at E, because she doesn't stop, man. She does not stop. And again, so she certainly is the little engine that could, and just keeps going, man. So proud of her, and proud to be associated with her.
Yeah, man. That's beautiful. I saw that. I mean, that's just one of your, that's one of your charitable things. But you once heard about a high school principal. You remember this?
Oh, yeah.
Working additional jobs to help struggling students. And he said your firm had to be involved. You didn't even skip a beat. You went straight to work. You guys went straight to work as a team. And like you said, the brotherhood from you 4 partners that are together to think alike and not have no discrepancies, man. I applaud you, man.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think that we've been very aligned on most things here. And again, you're never going to bat 1,000, right? You're never going to agree on everything. That's probably for the best. And so, but we have been very lucky and blessed that, and it was very intentional from the beginning. We had a lot of conversations about, do we want to keep growing? Do we want, what are the things that we really want to get out of this firm? And, keeping that communication alive throughout, but, making sure that the vision is still, very much aligned across the board. So, again, it's a little bit of luck, but also planned luck. We had these conversations. We knew each other well, and we knew what we didn't want, is what we always say. When we left that old firm, we said, we're going to build a firm with a foundation of a great culture. That's it, plain simple. If we hire somebody and they're a great culture fit, then 9 times out of 10, they're going to work here in the long run. So we can train, as long as they've got some level of aptitude and they've got they're a great culture fit. Pretty much you can train anybody to do this job. And so when we started from that as the foundation, it really has made it a lot easier to keep that alignment in terms of, what are we doing for the community? How do we serve our clients better? And everybody actually, enjoys coming to work as much as you can enjoy coming to work.
Right. So tell me about, you guys obviously you're doing cases now. You guys you you said you brought over 100 clients. What's your workload like nowadays, like monthly? How is that for you guys?
Yeah. We sign up usually a couple hundred cases a month. And I think we've got around 2,500 active cases right now. So,
Wow.
It's a lot. We're blessed to be able to help that many people, and just looking to continue to grow. So I think one of the important things too is not just looking at this as, how quickly can we get people in and out of the door. It's staying with that vision and mission of, providing exceptional legal services, amazing communication. I think that's one of the things people miss a lot, is actually communicating with your clients. And then making sure they get the medical care they need to get better, not only, physically, but emotionally. And of course, that, will lead to a better financial recovery for them as well, if we can deliver on all of those things.
Right. You guys are not just settlement type lawyers.
No,
you guys actually roll up your sleeves and get in the courtroom and fight for them. Tell me about one of your favorite trials that you had to go in and put the sleeves up and just go to work.
Yeah. I would say most recently we had a case that Jeff and Siegel were lead on. As you kind of mentioned earlier, I do a lot more on the management side at this point in time. But of course, bigger cases I want to stay somewhat involved in and at least give my input on. But right. I was really proud of them. In this case, it was a hotel balcony case up in Myrtle Beach, where a little girl fell through a wide balcony, and it wasn't to code. There's a whole bunch of stuff there. And they said, well, we've only got $1 million in insurance. And we said, we don't believe you. And they said, well, that's all we have. And so, we said, all right, we're going to file suit and we're going to investigate this more. And they I can't get into all the specifics. They didn't give us the things they were supposed to give us. We still were like, this is total BS. And Jeff and Siegel kind of went on the hunt, man. And they found, millions and millions of dollars more of insurance coverage that we were able to, after 4 years, eventually, recover for this little girl that will need every penny of that.
Right.
Amazingly, she lived after this.
Wow, that's a blessing. Praise God.
And so she's still young, where we don't really know the severity long-term of the injury. But it's certainly going to be very impactful on her life. And so we felt, there's an obligation there. We've got to do everything we can to make sure that this little girl has all of the money she can have in the future to live the best possible life she can. Right. And had we just accepted them at their word, or even after, the discovery responses, where they take the oath, oh yeah, this is all true. And we said, bullshit. No, it's not. And ended up recovering, $9 million for that little girl. So wow. That's life-changing money. And it took I think there were 35 depositions or something like that in the case. There were the amount of motions practiced there. And so that one didn't quite get to trial, but got pretty close. There were a couple others that we had recently this year and last year that settled the day of trial, where the original offer, I think it was originally a denied case. They said our client crossed the center line. Then they had offered us a couple $100,000 pre-suit, and that settled for $4 million, which from our focus group numbers was a really good recovery. It was over what some of the lower numbers were in that one. So that settled, the day of. So again, big shout out to Jeff on that one, just really working it. And again, there's a lot of work that goes into these.
Right.
We're doing a ton of focus group work. We're building out a new office that we'll be in about a month or so. We're going to have our own focus room where we can do, focus groups, bring in, jurors to hear our cases and make sure that we're maximizing the value of those cases, and not just, saying this is what we think it's worth or what the defense attorney thinks it's worth. We can say, well, we've got 20 people here in this county that the case will be in, and we can do it via Zoom or in person, but we will present the case and let them decide and hear the deliberations and, make sure that we're maximizing value for our clients.
Man, that strategy, that strategy that you guys are employing really makes it, I see why you're pulling down the numbers you are without even going, why they want to settle. I mean, you're already using the David and Goliath thing already with these insurance companies. You're striking fear in them. What's a part of Brandon Dawson that you refuse to sacrifice, no matter what the thumb up guys say?
Oh man, I think that's a really.
I asked that question because you said, you guys don't always agree on everything. There's the disagreements and stuff. But
yeah,
again, the leadership, you jump ship and everybody else jump ship. You know what I mean? You kind of were the, I want to say the cheerleader, if I can use that, in saying, hey, we can do this,
Yeah.
What part of that won't you ever saction of yourself?
I think there's kind of two answers here. When we made the shift to the thumbs up guys, there was a bit of internal turmoil of, is this a gimmicky name? And my partners were going, we really want to keep Miller, Dawson, Siegel, and Ward. And, I'm going, well, that's creating brand confusion. People don't know. So we'd have our case managers and attorneys call and saying, hey, I'm Brandon with Miller, Dawson, Siegel, and Ward. And they're like, I hired the thumbs up guys. And so I pushed hard to say, we really need to change the name internally and externally. They were like, all right, they kind of realized that wasn't going to, thumbs up guys is who we were. And I was like, that's the brand. That is who we are. And I said, look, people can think it's gimmicky all they want on the, whether it be a defense attorney or whoever, but if you go get results and you're going and trying cases and, providing, really high-end legal services, you can call yourself whatever you want. The results speak for themselves. And so I really have never backed down on, having, being the thumbs up guys internally and externally, and have kind of whittled away at them over the years. And I think they see the reason why, marketing wise, internally, externally, brand confusion, the clients like it. They want to know when they call that they hire the thumbs up guys or getting the thumbs up guys. And then it doesn't create that confusion there. So that's probably one that we've had as much, if not the most, internal debate and turmoil over there.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So Brandon, I spent a lot of time studying your career, and I noticed something interesting. Every time people describe you, they don't start with your verdicts or the business. They start with the character. So I was wondering myself, and I do this, what if your name itself tells your story? So if you give me a moment. Because you're balanced enough to protect your family before your schedule, you're resilient enough to bet on yourself when the outcome isn't guaranteed. You're altruistic enough to remember your community over success. Or after success. You're noble enough to lead with integrity instead of ego. You're driven to build. You're driven to build one of the South Carolina's most recognizable firms. You're optimistic enough to possibly see the possibilities where others see risk. And you're nurturing enough to build not only a law firm, but a culture where people can thrive. And if you look at those, take those key words out of everyone, that's the name Brandon. So the acronym for your,
I love that.
yeah, that's what I see. That's what I see in you, man.
Well, thank you. That's that's really, really, really kind. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I mean, well, your actions show that, man. You're using what God's given you, and you're being of service to people, you know. And I think as human beings, we need to do more of that, you know, in our daily walk. And speaking of walks, I saw a clip on your book where you guys had the photographer shooting. I'm going back to fashion, man. You guys are fashionable. The jackets,
we try to be approachable,
kicks,
man. You got to look good
the
too.
kicks, man. The Jordan kicks. Do you guys walk in the courtroom like that?
Not in the courtroom. Not in the courtroom. That's where you got to go real buttoned up. And yeah, the judges wouldn't like that. I think, but man, everywhere else we can get away with it. You know, we want to be a relaxed, approachable cult. Not only internal culture, but want our clients to feel like they can relate in that we aren't some stuffy, buttoned up, old white hair lawyers.
Man, it speaks volumes. So everything that you've done today, and how you've grown, what would you tell your younger self or a young attorney that walked into your firm that you know now and you didn't then? What would you say?
Man, it'll take longer than you think to build, but just be patient. And if you want to have the life that you really truly envision, then be willing to sacrifice. I think so many young kids coming out today expect to be where I am today on day one. And you haven't earned it. And I think, and I probably had a little bit of that early on, going, well, I graduated law school. I should have this, I should have that. And you look back and you go, man, you really hadn't earned your stripes yet. And so, keep your head down, work hard, and kind of pay your dues, but soak up everything. I think that you gotta bet on yourself if you really want to go far in life, and make. I guess the last thing I'd say is do things that make you uncomfortable. If you're not doing things that make you uncomfortable, then you aren't growing. And early on that was, trying cases. Even sitting I'm taking a deposition, and I had no training really on that. Looking back, it was not the right way to have done it, but that was, the firm I was at, and the lawyer there didn't really know what she was doing, and you had to litigate a case. And so, I'm calling my buddies that, had done it, that were years older than I was. How do I do this? What do I do here? And I had some great mentors outside of the firm. But man, there were a lot of times I was, internally shaking in my boots, but had to kind of put on that game face and just like, let's go do it. Same thing. I first case I ever tried, was all by myself. I had nobody there to help, and that's not the right way to do it. It's not in the best interest of the client. But it was a case that probably nobody else would have taken, again, I learned a lot from that. And still to this day, just doing things that make you uncomfortable, as often as you can. And I think that really, it will keep you growing. It'll keep you on your toes. And, yeah.
That's a bar right there. What you just said right there, that's a bar. Say that, doing the things that make you uncomfortable as often as you can.
Yep.
Right there, that's a sticking point.
Yeah, it's easier said than done, right?
Right.
It can be simple. It can be the little things. It can be, at the gym doing an extra set. Man, I don't want to do that, right? That'll make you totally uncomfortable. That's a little bit of discomfort. It's walking into that room that you don't know a soul in and go, man, I you know what, I'm not even going to show up today. I'm just going to leave. Nope. I'm going to go and I'm going to talk to 10 people today. You never know what's going to come of those conversations. And I think, it doesn't have to be something crazy. But if you just do little things that make you uncomfortable, I promise you'll unlock so many more doors.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well stated. So Brandon, when you hear the term, when you see the name Loudr Lawyer, tell me what a Loudr Lawyer means to you.
I think a Loudr Lawyer is somebody who refuses to sit on the sideline and watch life passing by. It's somebody that's out there that's impacting the community, that's helping other people, that's helping this profession as well, and that maybe talks too much, but likes to have a good time.
Nice. That's well said. That came from the heart. I could feel that.
Yeah, I'm looking at myself going, probably talks too much. People probably like, keep.
You're not talking.
No,
enough.
man, I love it. I love what y'all are doing, and I appreciate you having me on here today.
No, man, absolutely. You've been a complete pleasure. How do people get a hold of you? How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, easiest way, visit the website, inpain.com, Google the Thumbs Up Guys. If you want to email me directly, Dawson at mdswlegal.com. Give me a call, hit me up on Instagram. There's so many ways to find people these days, aren't there?
No, absolutely. Oh, the other thing I wanted to tell you, so much about you. I loved your Freaky Friday. That was
a cool one.
Huh?
Our marketing team, we were blessed there again to have some amazing people, and they came up with that collab with Anthony in the past. And man, when I saw that, I was like, that is just too good. For those of you who have not checked it out, our Instagram page is a lot of fun. We've done a lot of work of trying to figure out, how do you make social media work? And, we do have educational stuff on there, but people don't always go to Instagram. Most of the time they go there, to social media in general for enjoyment,
Right.
They want to have that mental break. And so we want to try to provide them with, something funny, something relatable. And then, you mix in a couple nuggets of legal stuff in there. So yeah, I forgot about that. That was a good one.
Nah, man, it was beautiful. So Brandon, thank you so much for being a guest today on Loudr Lawyer Network. Man, it was an honor to sit here and interview you and talk to you. You're really doing what God says, man. You're being of service to people. You're humble, taking care of your family, balancing all those things, and not getting ahead of yourself. And I think you're a beautiful human being, brother.
Well, thank you so much. And again, I really appreciate you giving me the platform today to tell my story. And like you said earlier, I probably should have mentioned this. My marketing team will get mad at me, but if I don't, anybody out there, if they ever need help in South Carolina, we've got offices all over the state. They can reach out to me or our team, and we are happy to pay referral fees on anything that you can't handle here. And we ship out a lot of cases as well on stuff outside of the state. So if you ever want to get in our referral network, please reach out as well, and we'll be happy to send cases out. So thank you again, Raje. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, brother. Hold on.
Thanks for being a part of the Loudr Lawyer Network. If you're enjoying the conversation, let us know. Give us a like and subscribe to never miss a thing. We'll see you next time right here on the Loudr Lawyer Network.